Assalamu alaikum class. Good day to you all. So today our session is on Unit 3, London, again comprehension. So let's start with this today. Diary. The Great Fire of London, September 1666. The Great Fire of London started in a baker's shop in Pudding Lane during the night of 1st September 1666 and raged for several days. Only about 20 people died, but the fire engulfed four-fifths of the old city, which in 1666 was made up of narrow streets and timber-framed houses massed closely together. The Great Fire destroyed 13,200 houses, 89 churches, and many of London's greatest landmarks, including St. Paul's Cathedral. Samuel Pepys, Samuel Pepys, pronounced Pepys, 1633 to 1703, is England's most famous diarist. A diarist is someone who writes a diary just as a biographer is someone who writes a biography. He held an important post as secretary to the Admiralty and kept a diary from 1660s until his eyesight began to fail in 1669. The following extracts are from Samuel Pepys' diary written during the Great Fire. The waterside is the edge of London's great river, the River Thames, pronounced Thames. 2nd September 1666. So down with my heart full of trouble to the waterside, and there got a boat and saw a lamentable fire. Poor Mitchell's house already burned, and the fire running further. In a very little time, it got as far as Stilligard while I was there. Everybody endeavoring to remove their goods into little boats, poor people staying in their houses until the fire touched them, and then running into boats. And among other things, the poor pigeons were looted, loth to leave their houses. The poor pigeons were loth to leave their houses and hovered about the balconies till some of them burned their wings and fell down. As far as we could see up the hill of the city, there was a most horrid, malicious, bloody flame, not like the flame of an ordinary fire. We saw the fire as an entire arch of flame from this to the other side of the bridge, and arch above a mile long, an arch about a mile long. It made me weep to see it. The churches, houses, all on fire and flaming at once, and a horrid noise that flames made, and the cracking of houses at their ruins. So home with a sad heart, and there find everybody discoursing and lamenting the fire. 4th September. Sir W. Batten dug a pit in his garden and buried his vine, and I put my office papers there too. In the evening, Sir W. Penn and I dug another hole, and I put in there uh, our Parmesan cheese and our wine. Now begins the blowing up of houses in Tower Street, which at first did frighten people more than anything, but it stopped the fire. St. Paul's is burned, and all chap said, I wrote to my father this night, but the post house being burned, the letter could not go. 5th of September, walked into Moorfields, our foot ready to burn, walking through the town among the hot coals, and find that full of people and poor wretches carrying their goods there, and a great blessing it is to them that it is fair weather for them to be outside night and day. Paid 2 pence for a plain penny loaf. I also saw a poor cat taken out of a hole in the chimney with the hair of the burned, with the hair all burnt, all burned off its body and yet alive. I also saw a poor cat taken out of a hole in the chimney with the hair all burnt off its body and yet alive. Okay, so this was the passage about the Great Fire in London in the 1666. Well, this is a very popular fire which burned almost all of London city, which resulted in the reconstruction of the whole city. So this is a turning point in that time. So since this is going to be a task that you have to complete, let's move on to the questions, and then we'll move on to the writing task. What did Pepe's see when he went down to the waterside? Okay, so let's go back to this point. So over here we see the detailed description of the when he was at the waterside. So down with my heart full of trouble to the waterside, and there got a boat and saw a lamenting fire. He saw a lamenting fire. Poor Mitchell's house already burnt, and the fire running through further. In a very little time, it got as far as Stilliard while I was there. So, what did he see? Okay, I'll just answer for you. What did Pepe see when he went down to the waterside? Okay, so what information we get from the passages that he saw a lamentable fire. Okay, so He got to the waterside in a boat and he saw a lamentable fire. Now, from this, we get the idea that the fire was very extravagant and it was very overpowering. Okay, so the fire, the this is showing the intensity of the fire. Then he also saw that someone named Mitchell, his house was already burned, and the fire was running further and was going far and far and far. And in a very little time, it got as far as Stilliard while I was there. Okay, well, he was there, so he saw this fire going everywhere. And he also saw that everybody was trying to remove their goods into little boats, poor people staying in their houses until the fire touched them, and then running into boats. And then he also saw the pigeons who had nowhere to go when their houses were burned. They just sometimes would stay in their balconies until their feathers got burned. Which details tell you about the effect of the fire on living creatures apart from human beings? So, the details in this whole passage, now we are going to discuss the whole passage. So, for instance, you can have the details about the pigeons, that the pigeons, they were flying above the balconies of the houses since the houses were burnt until their feathers got burnt and they fell down. So, one point. Then there is a discussion about the cat who was yeah, so there was a cat which was taken out of a hole in a chimney, whose hair were all burnt of its body, yet it was still alive. So you can see this about the pigeons and the cats, how everything was happening. Now you can just write it in your own words. What made Pepys weep in his diary entry for September 2? Okay, so let's see what made Peppy weep. We saw the fire as an entire arch of flame from this to the other side of the bridge, an arch above a mile long. It made me weep to see it. The churches, houses, all on fire and flaming at once, and a horrid noise that flames made, and the crackling of houses at their ruin. Now, if you see, this is what made him weep. So everything, okay, again, the first line as well also included. As far as we could see up the hill, all the city, there was a most horrid, malicious, bloody flame, not like the flame of an ordinary fire. So the intensity of the flame made him weep. You can then quote that next we need to, we listen we read about this instance that there was a most horrid flame, that fire was of no ordinary fire. Okay, and then again we see a fire as an entire arch of flame that tells you about the extent of the fire, that the fire was very ravaging, it was going very fast, and it had already taken hold of a very large distance. It says almost about a mile, okay, long. So there was a lot of fire, and you can just tell them that this made him cry, that everything was burning, houses, churches, everything, and the noise of the fire. And then you can quote from this text that, okay, you see, these words are there in the text that tell you about this. incident, and this made him weep. What could Pepe's hear on that day, 2nd September? Okay, this is 4th September. I think, yeah, no, this is 2nd September. Okay. So, what could Pepys hear? Well, he could hear the flame, the noise of the flames, that flame here, and the crackling of the houses at their ruins. So, this tells you that what he could hear. Why did Pepys and his friends dig holes in the ground? Now, this information is not provided. However, from the text, we can deduce that they dug holes to protect some of their stuff that they needed to be that needed to be protected. For example, his friend was interested in protecting his stock of wine, I believe. Yeah. So his friend, he just dig a pit, and he helped him to bury the wine he had, and he also put his official papers in that pit so that they do not get burnt by the fire, because fire would not go underground. So they just dug the pit to bury the wine and the official papers so that they do not get burnt in the fire. And this is, again, you can just quote that in the text. It says that dug a pit in his garden and buried his wine, and I put my official papers there too. And in the evening, they did another hole, and he also put his parmesan cheese and wine in that pit so that it does not catch fire. Again, there is a reason why wine had to be stored. It is not like that he needed the wine, because wine would catch fire very early, very soon. Okay, it's expensive again, also maybe for that reason. However, it would catch fire very soon, and it can just increase the intensity of the fire, or it could just burn a lot more area just in case if it catches fire. So that was also one of the reasons. But then again, they wanted to save something for as a food source that could be saved. So the wine bottles, they could just be simply put in a hole and then buried so that they can be recovered later on. Similarly, the parmesan cheese, so that they would have something to eat later on. Why were the houses in Tower Street blown up? Now, this information is also not provided in the text, but it does say that there was a horrific sound where the houses of the in the street were blown out. Well, the houses were blown up because there is only one way to stop such a massive flame. You have to stop the supply of fuel to the fire. So, what happens is, let me explain. When there is a fire in the jungle, what do they do? Or in a field, what is done? They just destroy some of the crop or some of the vegetation, right, like just a bit away from the fire where the fire is burning. जो न्यू वेजिटेशन होती है उसको हम डिस्ट्रॉय करके वो यहाँ से दूर कर देते हैं, सो जो डिस्टेंस है वो क्रिएट हो जाए बिटवीन दी fuel source available to the fire right now and the fuel source available. So there is a sort of a route जो create किया जाता है. There is a route that is created. So what would be done is, if there is fire on the west side of a field, they would just run to a tractor, and they will just plow the field in the middle so that the fire does not spread to the east of the field. Okay, that is how it is done. Similarly, when there was such a big fire, it could not be controlled, they blew the houses on this street so that the rubble and everything that would be there, it would be the only thing that could burn. And after that, the fire would, and they would just sweep the rubble towards one side so that fire does not cross to the other side and it does not engulf the other houses on the other side. That is how you just destroy some portion to save the rest. That is why the houses and Tower Street were blown. Why did Pepys record seeing and feeling in Moorfields in his diary entry for 5th September? What did Pepys record seeing and feeling in Moorfields in his diary entry for 5th of September? So he walked into the Moorfields, our feet ready to burn, walking through the town among the hot coals, and find that full of people and poor wretches carrying their goods there, and a great blessing it is to them that it is fair weather for them to be outside night and day. Paid 2 pence for a plain penny loaf. I also saw the poor cat and the whole thing. So what he saw on the street was that okay, the coal was all burning in their feet, okay, and their feet were about to burn. It was full of people. Poor people were trying to carry their goods, and they were they were saying that they are very blessed that the weather is not bad enough, because they had to stay out night and day because their houses were burned. And he also told that since everything was burned, the loaf of bread which used to cost a penny was now worth 2 pence. So this was the amount of things that got expensive. Since there was no food available, everything got burned. And he also saw the cat being taken out of the hole, which had all its hair burnt, and yet it was still alive. What does Pepe's purchase of the loaf uh, indicate about prices following the fire? So I've already discussed this, that the prices skyrocketed because he had to pay 2 pence instead of a penny. So 2 pence was much more than a penny. Okay, you need to know that it is several times more than a penny. So a penny was like the smallest currency unit, and pence were a lot more. That they would be like more. I don't know about the exact amount that would be in a pence, but a pence was definitely more than a penny. Maybe, for example, uh, the annas to, or the what do we say, paise to rupee. So penny would be the paise, and the 100 paisa would then become a rupee. Similarly, the penny and the 2 pence. The pence were even two. So the prices skyrocketed as plain. For example, the if there is a fire somewhere over here and like that, so the bread or the roti would be so expensive that a roti that is currently selling for a rupee, it is selling for 200 rupees or 500 rupees maybe. So that is sort of the example that has been provided. That tells you about the nature of things that got expensive. They were super expensive, things were super expensive because everything got burned. Now this is your writing task. Okay, so you're going to continue with your writing task and then go to the non-fiction passage. That's it for today, class. Thank you very much.